I'm going to try that out as a name for listeners of the podcast. So, hello, ground passers. Hope you're all doing well. I'm doing okay. I am back home watching the Medvedev-Murray match from home. Left the grounds early today because I've been staying late this whole time and just needed an early day today. But yeah, today was a super chill day, I think, on the grounds. I decided to take it a little bit easy. I've been going a mile a minute since Indian Wells, and it's finally getting to me, I think. I'm pretty exhausted. I'm going to need a vacation from my vacation once I get back home. So yeah, I just decided to have a pretty chill, quiet day. And when I got to the site, matches hadn't started yet. It was pretty quiet, but I realized that there was practice happening on the stadium court. So a lot of players get to practice, especially if they're going to play on the stadium court. They get to practice on the stadium court before their matches. And when I got there, I noticed that Holger Rune was practicing, and I hadn't really seen him practice much this tournament. So I went down, I had a cup of coffee with me. It was not too hot, but the sun was out, not too humid, and I just sat and watched him hit balls and edited the recap for yesterday's day at the Miami Open, and it was just the most meditative moment. I just felt so calm and at peace and happy, and I highly recommend having a coffee and watching some tennis. So yeah, that's how I started my day. Did some editing, had some videos to download and post, and all the behind the scenes stuff that I do. And then it was time to watch my first match, which happened to be Holger Rune's match against Fabian Marozsan. I was highly interested in the match because, as you know, Fabian Marozsan is now the famous Fabian Marozsan, who took out Carlos Alcaraz in his second round match in Rome last year. It was a pretty big upset. Some call it the upset of last year. I think Carlos who usually has very, I think, shaky first round matches. When I say first round, it's usually his second round because he gets a bye in the first round, but he tends to have very shaky first matches in tournaments. Was coming off of winning Barcelona and Madrid, and I was shocked by the person who, sort of took him out of the tournament, which was Fabian, but because I just didn't know who he was. I was like, who is this person? But not too shocked that he actually was out of the tournament. But yeah, that brings us back to Fabian Marozsan. So, he defeated Carlos in Rome. He's had some pretty big upsets. He seems to really show up against top 10 players. So I was curious about how this match would go. I didn't think it would go the way it did, which was Fabian Marozsan won the match 6-1, 6-1. That is a beatdown if I ever did see one. It just seems like Holger Rune was just not there, which is funny because just before I started recording, I was looking on social media and saw that Holger had posted that he actually was not feeling well, that he was a little sick and actually thought of withdrawing from the tournament. But after the practice that he had this morning where I watched him practice, he was feeling better, so he decided to go forward with the match. So yeah, that was the first match and a big upset of the day. And that sort of carried me on to Andy Murray's match, which is happening on the third largest court at this tournament. Again, just because of the way, the rain affected the schedule and everything. Andy Murray was playing on the third largest court. And even though he has said this was his last Miami Open, he wasn't on one of the two bigger stadiums. Either way, the crowd showed up. It was packed and there were lines to get in, and Andy Murray put on a show. He was playing lights out tennis the only way Andy Murray could. The match lasted about 3.5 hours. Again, Andy Murray did not come into press today, but the one question I would have wanted to ask him was how he has built up this endurance, because Andy Murray matches just on the regular go 3+ hours, and we just always say, oh, it's the Andy Murray thing, but at his age, he's coming to the end of his career and he's still having 3.5 hour long matches. That's pretty impressive, and whatever he's doing to work on his endurance, I would love to join in on the party and do that too. He was close. He was very close to winning this match, but unfortunately, he did not. He had a little bit of an ankle roll. It seems to be the thing right now happening, but he had an ankle roll at a very pivotal point, and he just was not the same for the rest of the match. Thomas Mahak, who I've seen play better, he definitely had some trouble serving the match out at some points, and the crowd, I got to talk to Thomas Mahak after the match, and he mentioned that the crowd, it felt like a Davis Cup tie, which are usually rowdy and ruckus and fun, and they were all there for Andy Murray, so it was definitely tough conditions for him, but he was able to pull through in the end and win the match. Thomas Mahak has had some really fun matches, I would say, or at least pivotal matches this tournament. He was the one who faced the famous wild card Darwin Blanche, who you might know as the guy who trains with Alcaraz and was training with him before the Australian Open in 2023, where Alcaraz hurt himself and had to pull out of the Australian Open in 2023. His second match was against Andrei Rublev, which he won. That was one of the first big upsets of the tournament. And now here he is with Andy Murray. His next match is against Matteo Arnaldi, the Italian, who is playing phenomenally at the moment. And that should be a fun match. I will hopefully be there for it. So excited to see that. I also, I got to ask I got to ask Thomas Mahak about his short shorts. This is a trend that's happening right now with some of the guys on the ATP tour. It started mostly with Holger Rune. He really likes the 5-inch inseam. He wears his short shorts, and Thomas Mahak is now someone who has carried that on, and I got to talk to him about it in a press, because that was a style that I think was really big in the 80s. And then slowly with Pete Sampras and other American players, the shorts became longer and more sort of like capris. Remember when Nadal used to wear basically capris? But it seems like the short shorts are coming back, which I am all here for. It's a very clean style, and I kind of like it. The proportions, I think, fit better, and it's more modern look in my mind. So I got to ask him about that. I will put a link in the description of this podcast to the video, so you can watch the video and see how he answers that question. He did actually have a really good answer for the question. And so that was the Holger Rune match. I kind of wandered for a bit. Blair Henley, she is a sort of, she presents at the tournaments. She does it for multiple tournaments, so she's kind of the on-court presenter on Grandstand, and she had posted a food truck chicken sandwich a while back, like at the beginning of the tournament, and I made a note of it and I had to go try it. I've been trying basically all the food that's at the Miami Open just to do a sample. I might do like a little reel of all my favorite food stands, and that chicken sandwich from Monster Burger is definitely a winner. That one was it. It's my favorite one so far. I still have a few more cards to try out, but so far that's my favorite. So thank you, Blair. I will put a link to her Twitter. She's really fun on Twitter and really chill at these tournaments. I really like her on-court interviews because you can tell she kind of like follows the players and knows what they're doing. So all of her on-court like interviews are relevant to what's going on in the players' lives, and it gives them a little bit of a personality. I think the more audiences are exposed to these players and get to know their personalities, the more people can get attached to the sport and become fans of these players and show up at tournaments to support them. And, I think that's just a great way to help support the sport. So yeah, ate a little bit, and then I went and I hung out on the stadium court and watched Iga play against Linda Noskova. I really, really love this little rivalry they have ever since Noskova beat Iga at the Australian Open. It's kind of been a back and forth, and the last 2 times now that they've played, Iga has won, but it's always a tussle. And this one was a tussle too. The way it ended was so good. Linda had broken back. She'd gotten one of her break points back. And Iga was serving for the match at 5-4. And Linda got up 3 break points. And it was I was like, oh, wow, Linda's going to break here. And we're going to go into a tie break in the third. And the gear that Iga just turned on and won 5 points in a row to then win the match, it's impressive. Like that kind of stuff, that's impressive stuff. Like just to be able to switch on and just say, no, I'm going to win this match. That's some impressive stuff. What I actually found fascinating was in her on-court interview, she mentioned that at Love 40, she got some coaching, and it was good coaching, and it was able to center her and make her go for it and, win the match. And I loved hearing that because there's a thing happening right now where some people, like on-court coaching is legal. Coaches can speak to their players under certain circumstances while they're playing. It wasn't legal before. It's something that's changed. It's new, but it is legal. But there's some people that just are not about it and feel like players should just be out there gritting it alone, use their mentality and their strength and just, win these matches. And I think that's just super naive. I think that's something, coaches are there for a reason. Players have coaches for a reason to help make them better. The coaches are not out there hitting the balls. A player still has to do that. But the sort of romantic idea that there's just this one person on court just, fighting the dragon with their sword on their own is, I think, very naive, because I think coaching has always happened. It was just illegal before, and a lot of people got away with it with signals and signs and all this stuff, but it's legal now. Why can't they do it? It's actually very interesting to see how the coaches are coaching their players and if those players respond to it, or if they don't. Something that actually happened at the match with Thomas Mahak, he was definitely getting some coaching from his coaches, and I think it was something he tried during some points, but it didn't work for him, and he was so upset. And just seeing that process, that back and forth, that problem solving, just because your coach tells you to hit the forehand harder doesn't mean you're going to hit the forehand harder. It's just, at least we get to know what they're trying to tell them to do and see if and when they can execute that. So I don't know. That was just like my mini rant on coaching. Hopefully I'll get to talk to some coaches sometime in the future, because I think it's something so fascinating and something that I think people need to get over and accept that this is what it is. It's always happened before. It's just now that we are seeing it out in the open. That was the last match I watched today. While the match was happening, you could hear the chants and just celebrations from the third largest court. I keep saying the third largest court. It's called like Butch. I can't pronounce the last one, so I just keep calling it the third largest court on at the Miami Open tournament. And it was a match between the Chilean Jari and the Brazilian Wild. And the Brazilian and Chilean fans were on it. It sounded like a Davis Cup tie, because it probably was, but it was so loud and so good. And I saw some videos that Tennis TV had posted, and there's been discussions of getting more tournaments down to South America, and why isn't there a 1,000 event in Florida? Not in Florida. Why isn't there a 1,000 event in South America? And being at the Miami Open, it's kind of funny because there's such a large Latin American community here that it almost feels like we are in, having a Masters and WTA 1000 event in Latin America, because I hear way more Spanish in the stands than I do English, not an exaggeration. So it gave me, I've never been to a tournament in South America or in Mexico. I've only seen photos and videos and see how boisterous the fans can get, and it's great to actually see that and feel what that is like. And I hope sometime in the future they do get a 1,000 event in South America, because it seems like there is such a huge community of people who love tennis down there, and I'm all for just the spreading of the tennis joy wherever it is that people appreciate tennis. But yeah, that was, I left the grounds to the sounds of that court. I don't even know if that match, I think that match is over actually. Jari won that match. But I'm back home now just watching Norrie and Medvedev. Medvedev is taking the first set. It seems pretty comfortably, even though Norrie is fighting through. But yeah, that's all I got for you today. I will be back on site tomorrow. The schedule for tomorrow is much lighter. We are now into the second week of the tournament, and there's a lot more doubles on. So I'm going to try and get some doubles matches in tomorrow. And there's some great singles matches as well. I'll probably put up a watch list early tomorrow morning of what I'm going to go see. I started this podcast thinking it would be a short one, but it's actually a long one. Either way, great talking to you, ground passers, as always, and I will see you tomorrow.